Hello students, I am Dr. Teresa Biggie and I will be handling this course of Managerial Economics. I am from IBS Bangalore and as you all know that this is a very important course in SEM 1. So let's move over to what is the course summary, what does it basically deal with. This course deals with integrating microeconomic principles to management decision making, and we make extensive case study analysis to achieve this purpose of integrating these principles with the real world and specifically management decision making. The learning outcomes of this course is what you expect to achieve at the end of the semester by studying this subject. So this gives you an in-depth analysis of the various theories and behavior of economic agents. What do I mean by economic agents? I'm basically talking about individual and firms' behavior. The course also aims at providing application of the various microeconomic concepts to managerial decision making, which is what I mentioned a while ago. The course content broadly is classified under various heads. We start with the introduction to economics. This talks about the various economic systems prevailing in the world, namely the market economy, the command economy, and the mixed economy, and how these different systems decide on what to produce, for whom to produce, and how to produce. So basically, how do these systems distinguish themselves by addressing these questions? Next, we move over to the basic concepts of supply and demand analysis, wherein we study the law of demand, the demand schedule in particular, how we define or how we arrive at the demand curve, what are the factors that causes changes in demand and shifts in demand. Similarly, supply is also studied on these lines. Next, we move over to consumer behavior. Consumer behavior basically talks about the buying behavior of consumers using microeconomic principles. So these microeconomic principles, like utility analysis and indifference curve analysis, is used to explain the behavior of consumers in the market. A very integral part of this course is undoubtedly the production and cost analysis. We start by defining the production function and the different concepts in production like marginal product, average product, etc. And also, very importantly, how a firm or a producer reaches an equilibrium subject to his constraints of cost. So this is explained clearly in this chapter. Cost analysis is a topic where we relate the concepts of production to cost. And we also classify the different types of costs under various heads. So basically these chapters are interrelated. Moving over to market structure analysis and estimation. We begin by distinguishing the different types of market structures prevalent in industry today and classifying various industries under each of these market structures. Primarily we deal with the features of these market structures, but more importantly, how price and output is determined in each of these market structures. So we start with perfect competition, move over to monopoly, and after defining these, we move over to the imperfect competition, comprising of monopolistic competition and oligopoly. Another important chapter which we would be dealing with, which would be of interest to many, are the pricing practices prevalent in industry. So on what principles do they undertake this pricing. So is it, whether it is markup pricing or premium pricing, what really do these things entail? Then we move over to the last aspect. As we know, we are living in a world with risk and uncertainty. So whenever a firm takes a decision, whether it is related to pricing or ad spend or anything, it cannot afford to ignore the reactions of its rivals or be proactive to determine what they would be, what is the next decision that they would take. So game theory gives an in-depth understanding of how the firm makes decisions under these conditions of uncertainty. Now, the suggested textbook would be Managerial Economics by Robert Pendick and Daniel Rubenfield, which has a number of caselets to support all these theories and give you a real-world perspective. So as I mentioned at the beginning, we are just integrating the microeconomic principles with the real world. And that is the main focus of this course. As you know, we are in a lockdown, and so we have to heavily depend on blended online learning. So what do I mean by blended online learning? It is an integration of synchronous and asynchronous learning. What do I mean by synchronous learning is nothing but live sessions, lectures related to the syllabus topics using Zoom application, and also basic Excel tools like pivot tables and other statistical functions which would be used widely. This is integrated or blended with the use of QuickForce to embed videos, PPTs, and also conduct evaluations. I'm sure by now you would be having access to QuickForce. So you would be well aware of the various options there and the various activities which you can access. So if it is evaluations, it could be in the form of a quiz, forum, assignment, etc. And all the details and the timelines and the description would be indicated there. The Excel tools that are mapped with the syllabus topics would be statistical functions of forecasting and regression to show the impact of select factors, independent factors like income, price, etc. on demand. So this would be mapped to the topic demand analysis and forecasting. Further, under cost and production, you would be having pivot tables to analyze data sets of companies' cost related information and classify the different types of costs under various heads. Moving over to markets, we would be using graphical analysis and recommended charts like pie charts, etc. to study the market share in different industries and classify them under different market forms. This would be extremely helpful when you make your presentations or group activity using QuickForce. Last but not the least, we would be discussing the suggested cases, because as I mentioned earlier, we would be extensively using cases and caselets to understand and analyze the microeconomic principles. So under demand analysis, we have three cases: understanding crude oil demand, Tesla in China, and specifically under the topic of elasticity, we have the case, can Starbucks sustain its high prices in China? In fact, this case can also be dealt with under the chapter of pricing. Moving over to market structure, the C factors, cement industry in India, unhealthy oligopoly and controls. As the very name of the case suggests, this relates to the topic oligopoly under market structure. Ambassador riches to rags, is competition the culprit, is also another interesting case which is related to the topic market structure. Another recent and very interesting case is the case of Reliance Jio. I'm sure all of you are familiar with this. And it talks about the concept of evolving market structures. So Reliance Jio how it is evolving slowly into a monopoly. So this deals with the evolution of market structures. All these cases are fairly recent, and I'm sure it would be very interesting. In addition to this, we would be also dealing with a number of caselets recommended in your textbook, as well as from outside sources which are reliable. So that's about all. I look forward to a very participative and cooperative learning experience, and that depends on your cooperation, and I believe that you will cooperate with me in this to make it a very stimulating experience. Thank you.